Beast Tamers are wizards who are able to utilize the unique abilities inherited from mana beasts. The first stage, known as the learning stage, is when beast tamers are able to borrow the innate powers of their beasts. In the second stage, the merging phase, which can truly utilize their beasts' unique abilities and characteristics. Virion, after decades of studying the will of his beast, has just unlocked the second stage. He can now utilize the deadly prowess of the Shadow Panther. Virion challenges Arthur to watch as he sneaks up behind him. Arthur hesitates, assuming Virion will tell him. Virion moves quickly, and Arthur, despite his efforts, cannot react to Virion's speed. Arthur gives up, recognizing that Virion's speed is too high for his level. Virion explains that although using the merge phase requires effort, it is by no means without drawbacks. Arthur marvels at Virion's ability to move undetected, even when directly behind him. Virion explains that the Shadow Panther can manipulate wind and sound to achieve this effect. Virion feels he has been bullied enough and asks when the real training begins. The days pass quickly for Arthur. Through Virion's guidance and his own knowledge, Arthur was able to access the first stage of his dragon will. Virion also taught him to hide the existence of his beast will in front of other wizards. When not strengthening his mana core or studying the Sylvia dragon, Arthur would spar with Virion. The merging process allows Arthur's body to keep up with constant training and conditioning. In his free time, Arthur spends as much time as possible embracing the joy and innocence of childhood as Sylvia would want him to. The day of departure has finally arrived. Tess is sad to say goodbye to Arthur after spending the last few years together. Arthur makes sure Sylvia's grandmother's fur is doing its job in hiding Sylvie's whereabouts. It's time for Arthur to leave. Virion gives Arthur a pendant with the coat of arms of Iralath's house to help him navigate the forest. Virion jokes by saying Arthur could have found another princess to take him home. Tess is not happy with her grandfather's joke. They say goodbye. Arthur hopes that Tesha will be stronger than him when they meet later. Arthur hugs and says goodbye to Tess. They express their longing for each other. Arthur waves goodbye and enters the train. In the carriage, Ferth Ivesar III, a nobleman whom Arthur once defeated in a duel, appears. He claims his defeat was unfair because Arthur attacked him first, whereas the challenger is supposed to strike first in a magic demonstration. Arthur recognizes Ferth and apologizes for his past actions. Ferth says that Arthur can call her Faithy. The journey continues. Finally, they reach the floating city of Xyrus, where Arthur's parents are. In a bustling city, people pass by and chat with each other. A woman in an apron offers a piece of cake to a man, while a knight in armor accepts a drink from a man in brown robes. A horse-drawn carriage passes on the street in front of a stately building, and a large and imposing palace building is also seen under the light of the crescent moon. A boy named Arthur Lewin arrives in front of a large house with a bag and a small black dragon perched on his shoulder. He tells his cat, Sylvie, that they have finally reached home and asks if Sylvie is ready. Arthur then knocks on the door of the house. An old maid greets him, asking what she can do for him. Arthur introduces himself as Arthur Lewin and says that he was told his family lives in this house. The maid is surprised to hear the name Lewin. A little girl hides under the maid's skirt and peeks at Arthur. Alice Lewin, Arthur's mother, suddenly appears and calls out to the little girl. Alice is surprised who came and dropped the food she was holding. Alice Lewin, my sister, wait before that. Hi mom, I'm home. Alice Lewin, Arthur's mother, ran and hugged Arthur while crying because she missed Arthur very much. Reynold also came home from work and he immediately ran because he saw Arthur had come. Reynold also cried, and finally Arthur, who always held back his tears, also cried. Alice asks Arthur about his condition and whether he has recovered. She also comments that Arthur looks thin. Arthur assures his mother that he is fine. Reynolds is proud to see Arthur, who has grown big and strong. Alice calls Ellie, Arthur's sister, to greet her brother. Arthur and Ellie greet each other and shake hands. Arthur explains to his family about what happened to him. but he keeps Sylvie's whereabouts and the origin of her powers a secret. He also assures his family that he has fully recovered. Reynolds asks about which core stage Arthur is currently in. Reynolds recounts his work as Helstia's auction house guard instructor and shows off his achievement of having reached the dark orange stage. Arthur says that his current core stage is light red, which surprises Reynolds. Reynolds invites Arthur to compete in the backyard. Alice shakes her head at Reynolds' behavior. Reynolds warns Arthur that he is not the same man he used to be. Arthur accepts his father's challenge and they prepare for the match. A man's footsteps echoed in the hallway, approaching quickly. He seems to be in a hurry, almost running. The man suddenly opened the door and exclaimed, "Ray? I heard your son is alive." His voice is full of surprise and disbelief. Arthur, Ree's son, observed the family who had taken care of him with curiosity. So they are the ones who have taken care of my family, he thought. Ray introduces Arthur to Vincent Helstia and his family. "Vincent, Tabitha, I want you to meet my son, Arthur." "He's really back, Vince," Ray exclaimed happily. "Arthur, this is Vincent Helstia, manager of the Helstia auction house, and an old friend of mine now working with me. This is his house, so introduce yourself before we start ruining it," Vincent added. "Nice to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. Helstia," Arthur said politely. Reynolds apologizes for the misunderstanding because he asked Vincent and his family not to tell anyone about him. Lelia, Vincent's daughter who is the same age as Arthur, looks at him curiously. One of the older women strokes Arthur's head. Vincent's wife introduces her daughter to Arthur. "Arthur, this is Lelia. She's the same age as you, so I hope you two can become friends," she said kindly. Arthur waves his hand to Lelia. The little black dragon on his shoulder meows softly. Vincent was surprised to hear that Ray and Arthur were going to spar. The four of them then head to the backyard. Ray and Arthur get ready, while Vincent, Alice, and their children watch from a distance. Alice and Lelia sit on the stairs, watching Ray and Arthur. Vincent asks Alice, "Your husband isn't serious about Arthur being a light red core wizard, is he?" Lelia replies, "Sit down, dear." She adds, "I was surprised too, but Arthur always learns quickly, and there's no reason to lie." Vincent expresses his concern about Arthur's rapid development. "So I'm supposed to believe that an 8-year-old has not only awakened, but has progressed 3 stages? Even that arrogant genius boy who was admitted to Xyrus Academy is barely at the dark red stage, and they're 11 or 12. Ray responded, "I think it's best not to tell him that I'm just a light red because I didn't train my human core during the merger with Sylvia's will." Arthur, who had been preparing, said to Ray, "I hope you're ready. Your father is not the same as he used to be." Ray and Arthur face each other. Arthur says, "Me too." The two then begin to fight. Arthur attacks Ray with a kick, but Ray manages to parry. Ray countered Arthur's attack with a punch that hit him in the stomach. "You have to try harder, Law," Ray said, but Arthur managed to dodge and counterattack. Ray catches Arthur and throws him. Arthur swiftly grabbed Ray's shirt and threw him back, and Ray managed to block Arthur's slam with his hand. Arthur asks Reynolds, "So what do you think?" "Not bad, I admit you got me when I was off guard," Reynolds replies. Ray unleashes the power of fire magic. "Your old man is going to get serious now," she said. Flames blazed around her body. "A little trick I learned after I broke through the dark orange stage." "Don't say I didn't warn you," Ray said. "I also learned a trick or two," he added. "Try not to be too surprised," Arthur told Ray. Alice, Lelia, and Tabitha look surprised to see Arthur unleashing magic power. Vincent is dumbfounded, Arthur thought, as expected from my father. "His blows are getting sharper and he's utilizing a longer reach, so I can't get close," Arthur said to himself. Under a bright blue sky, the brunette Arthur emits electric sparks from his hands, preparing to attack Reynolds, his father. The aforementioned Reynolds, with an angry expression and flaming hands, shouts out Arthur as a deviant. A fierce battle ensues between Arthur and the man. The agile Arthur uses his electrical power to attack, Well, the man uses his fire power to defend and counterattack. There was a series of attacks, dodges, and clashes of power between the two. Finally, the man managed to knock Arthur to the ground with the power of fire. The Reynolds laugh and say that the trick Arthur used was something he taught himself. Elsewhere, the younger Arthur is practicing his electrical powers with a gray-haired man. Arthur thinks that although his electric power is the greatest of his deviant abilities, he still needs to practice more. He is not yet stable in controlling ice, sound, and gravity. His father is surprised and asks when Arthur learned it, while his mother warns Ellie, Arthur's sister, to be careful. Arthur's mother and sister are impressed by Arthur's powers. Vincent thinks this is absurd and he wants a drink, looking a little tired. He says that he is thirsty and wants a drink. Tabitha praises him as a wonderful boy. The family then leaves the training ground. The Halstias and the Lewins go inside. In a room with a fireplace and a large dining table, Vincent slams his beer glass down on the table. He asks the couple in front of him, "Do you realize what kind of future your son has?" Reynolds replied across the table excitedly, "Oh, sure. I've known since he woke up at 3 years old." Tabitha, sitting next to Vincent, was shocked. "What? Woke up at 3 years old?" Reynolds continued, "In the process, he blew up most of our house," with a laugh. "Ha, what fun times." Vincent slammed his hand on the table. "Ray, what if we enroll Arthur in Xyrus Academy?" The man across the table said, "Really? But he's only 8 years old, and Xyrus Academy is the most prestigious magical institution on the continent." Tabitha said, "My drunken husband is right, Ray. Alice, with his talent, it would even be worthwhile for us to sponsor Arthur, so you don't have to worry about his school fees." Alice seemed to feel bad. "We can't do that to you. After all you've done for us, to pay for our son's schooling is just ... Vincent smiled slyly. "I happen to do a lot of business with the famous director of Xyrus Academy myself. I can talk to him and..." Arthur said, "Seeing this affects my future, may I say something?" In Arthur's room, Alice and Reynolds say, "I still can't believe you're here with us. You've grown into such a handsome man," she said as she rubbed the boy's head. The man next to her added, "I've changed a lot since the last time you saw me, haven't I?" "No matter how much you've changed, you're still our son." Reynolds continued, "Even after learning that you're a deviant, who might be capable of becoming one of the strongest witches in the future, that's just the second best news of the day." Alice said, "Your father is right." Alice says, "But now you're probably too grown up for your mom, who gave you a goodnight kiss a long time ago." "Huh." Arthur kisses Alice, his mother. Reynolds walked out and said, "And Arthur, don't hold it against Vincent for getting too excited earlier. He means well." In the presence of several adults, Arthur politely said, "With all due respect, I was just reunited with my family today. May I spend some time with them before deciding whether or not to leave them again to attend the academy?" Vincent was startled and said, "Sure, you're right. I'm overreacting." Arthur continued, "I seem to be a little more tired than I thought. Please excuse me." A little brown-haired girl approached the boy. They walked down the hallway. The girl said, "If you head that way, you'll end up in one of our dungeons." The girl points in another direction and says, "Come on, I know a better place." In a room that looked like a kitchen, the girl introduced the boy to the people there. "Hi everyone. Hope you don't mind having a guest today. So this is the boy who burned down half of the yard that I worked so hard to maintain." Arthur bowed and apologized. "I apologize for the trouble I caused." Lelia, he then asked the old woman, "Do we have any duck meat left? The fat part?" The old woman warned, "Be careful, Lelia. Madame Helstew is getting suspicious because you've just gained weight." The girl called Lelia replied, "I'm a healthy girl." The mustachioed man explained, "The greatest wish of the lord and lady is for their daughter to awaken as a witch, even though neither of them are. Of course, Lelia also wants to be a witch, but the pressure is too much for a little girl." Arthur thought to himself, "Don't worry, I can tell that the Halstians are good people and must mean well." A woman bids the boy good night. "Good night, child." A sunny morning in a grand palace. Arthur woke up to Sylvie, his pet, licking his face. Haha, I woke up Sylvie, he said as he picked Sylvie up. Tess, a white-haired woman, you're happy, aren't you? He asked himself. I was wondering. Arthur, then, he realized something. Looks like I'm not the only one who wants to take a bath today, he muttered. Arthur takes Sylvie to the bathtub. Sylvie looks happy and shouts, Q. Arthur is wearing light blue clothes. He looks in the mirror and says, come on. It's not bad. Sylvie hugs him from behind. There was a knock on the door. Wait, exclaimed Arthur. The door opened and Ellie, Arthur's little sister, appeared. Good morning, big brother. Mama said to wake you up, said Ellie shyly. I see, Arthur responded. Then can Ellie take us to Mama's place? He continued. Ellie looked excited. Okay. We'll have breakfast, then go shopping, she replied, taking Arthur's hand. They ran out of the room, with Sylvie behind them. Arthur, Ellie, their mother, and another woman strolling through the town of Xyrus. So this is the city of Xyrus, exclaims Arthur. Arthur asks Tabitha, what kind of shop is this? Asks Arthur. Those little orbs you see are called beast cores, Arthur's mom replied. They are magical cores extracted from mana beasts to strengthen you, though the effects between cores can vary greatly. Arthur's mother continued her explanation. It's a bit of a gamble to spend hundreds of gold, she added. But if you're lucky, one might even contain the will of the beast, she continued. Arthur was surprised. Hundreds of gold, he exclaimed. If it's not thousands, replied Tabitha, who was with them. Tabitha added, our Helstia auction house received a few beast cores and even baby mana beasts. You are welcome to take a closer look at them when you get the chance. I appreciate it, thank you, Arthur replied. Come on. There's a place I want to take you as soon as I see you, Lilia said as she pushed Arthur. Arthur is taken to a hair salon. A large hairdresser was trimming his hair. Was this necessary? Arthur asked himself. His mother watched anxiously. Arthur, dear? Your hair looks terrible, she said. Don't worry, ma'am. I'll make your sunshine, said the hairdresser. The hairdresser continued her work. He will be like a perfect jewel, he said. Arthur grimaced at his new haircut. He shouts to himself, internal screaming. He walks out of the salon with his mom, Ellie, and the other women. I feel stupid, Arthur thought to himself. You look perfect, dear, his mom compliments him. Arthur looks shy with his new look. Ellie notices Arthur and says, pretty good as Ellie's brother now. Ellie's right. You look like a gentleman, says Arthur's mom. They were walking on the street and passed a group of students. They're students from the Xyrus Academy, said Lilia. Huh. Oh, I didn't realize, said Arthur. The uniform is some kind of status symbol, said Lilia. It looks like a surprise to me, replied Arthur. There are a lot of them. They're almost considered royalty around here, added Lilia. What are you two talking about? Asked Arthur's mother. We were talking about school, replied Lilia. Arthur, the bell on the door rings as he enters. Can I help you? Asks an old man in the shop. You seem to be looking at a dangerous weapon. Do you understand what it is? The old man asked Arthur. Son, this is not the same as the toy sword you have at home, he continued. Arthur was about to explain, but was cut off by the old man. There's a candy store outside ... I know enough about weapons. Forgive me for blocking the way, said Arthur. Wait, boy, the old man exclaimed. Did your family teach you to speak harshly? Arthur's mother came over and said, get your hands off my son. Who do you think you are? Snapped the old man. I am Aegitus of the family. The old man's words trailed off as he realized who Arthur's mother was. Helstia, he exclaimed in shock. Aegitus? You are from the Revenper branch of the family. Do you want me to revoke your and your family's participation from the Helstia auction house? Threatened Tabitha. No, I didn't know that this bow child was with the Helstia family. I apologize from the bottom of my heart, the old man pleaded while kneeling down. Thank you for getting me out of that situation, Arthur said to his mother. They walked away from the gun shop. Honestly, I was more worried about you doing something to that guy, Tabitha said to Arthur. Sylvie came up to Arthur. She exclaimed. They arrived. You've all finally arrived, greeted a man. Arthur, come here. I want to introduce you to someone, said the man. You must be Arthur. Vincent told me many things about you, said an old woman in a witch's hat. My name is Cynthia Goodsky. I am the director and founder of Zyra's Academy. She continued. Zyra's Academy, an institution hailed as the most reputable sanctuary for any privileged aspiring wizard with a qualified background and talent. A place where renowned scholars, guild members, leaders, royal guards, and military power centers thrive. Such is the fame that this school has, an academy that cannot be compared to the many other academies spread across this continent. And standing at the top of it all is the director of the academy himself, Director Goodsky. Everyone who makes an impact in this world has a connection to Zyra's Academy. Arthur Lewin, a child, stares at Director Goodsky with a curious gaze. Director Goodsky extends his hand towards Arthur saying, Nice to meet you, Arthur Lewin. Arthur shook Director Goodsky's hand and said, Nice to meet you, Director. Suddenly, Arthur's mother apologizes to Director Goodsky for her son's rude behavior. Director Goodsky explains that he has come at the invitation of Arthur's father, Vincent, who has made great contributions to Zyra's Academy. Director Goodsky explained that he rarely traveled to visit prospective students, but he was intrigued by the miracle Vincent told him had happened at his home. Arthur's mother pinches Arthur for his attitude. Arthur's family and Director Goodsky head to the paved courtyard. Director Goodsky asks if Sylvie is the mana beast that Arthur has a contract with. Arthur explains that Sylvie is his and hatched just a few months ago. Arthur recounts how he found Sylvie and her mother. Director Goodsky looks thoughtful. They arrive at the paved courtyard. Director Goodsky wants to see that Vincent's story is not exaggerated. Vincent said he would be surprised when Arthur showed his fire and lightning magic, and he would not be able to burn this courtyard like the previous one. Cynthia asks, Don't you want to arm yourself with at least a weapon? To which Arthur replies, Since you don't intend to use the staff on your belt, I will also go forward with my bare hands. Arthur demonstrates his power by manipulating mana. Arthur's family and Halstia's family are shocked. Arthur launches an attack on Director Goodsky. A red-haired Arthur is seen running and kicking a large rock. It flew towards a white-haired Cynthia wearing a hat and a long, dark purple robe with golden details. The Cynthia easily brushed off the boulder, which then shattered into pieces in the air. The Cynthia smiled slightly. The Arthur wields green magic power in his hands. He manipulated more stones, this time smaller and more numerous, flying towards him. Swiftly, the boy dodged and used the stones as footholds to leap towards Cynthia. He launched an attack with his green magic-clad hands. Cynthia deflected Arthur's attack with powerful wind magic, creating a small tornado. Arthur was thrown into the air. The Arthur twisted his body in the air, utilizing the wind to control his fall. He lands nimbly on a floating rock, then kicks one of the rocks at Cynthia. Cynthia creates another tornado. Arthur looks shocked. The boy uses counter-rotation, wind magic to neutralize the tornado. He spins in the air, creating a green whirlwind around him. Arthur lands with his knees touching the ground. Cynthia praised Arthur's skill, but criticized his tendency to go head-to-head with opponents. She considers this fight as a final test. The Cynthia casts blue magic directed at the Arthur. The Arthur clutches his head, looking in pain. Cynthia explained that the magic was sound magic and that she was a deviant. The bespectacled man who had been watching looked surprised. Arthur was declared a graduate. Reynold asked when Arthur was able to use earth and wind magic. Vincent explained that Arthur had just used fire and lightning magic. Vincent brought him to the paved courtyard because Arthur had burned the courtyard. Cynthia asks if Arthur can control at least 3 elements and has reached the deviant level. The Arthur corrects that he has affinity for all 4 elements. He demonstrates his magic power, combining the elements of fire, water, and when Cynthia is shocked and almost faints. Reynolds approached her, worried. Cynthia apologizes and assures him that she is okay. Ellie asks Alice if her sister is strong. Cynthia replies that her brother is very strong, perhaps the strongest in the future. Reynolds is surprised to hear that. Arthur apologizes to his family for keeping this a secret. Alice asked him not to have any more secrets. Cynthia is seen chanting a spell. A transparent energy dome surrounds them. Cynthia explains that her family cannot hear them while the spell is active, so she can talk about whatever is on her mind. Arthur realizes that Cynthia can read his mind. The Arthur explains that he is demonstrating his ability because he needs Cynthia's power and influence to protect his family until he is strong enough. He intends to attend Cynthia's academy and regard her as his helper. Cynthia was both flattered and challenged by Arthur's request. She said that even King and Queen Sapin dared not make a one-sided deal with her. But she admitted that she realized Arthur's potential. Arthur explained that he had promised someone important to live his life the way he wanted to. He thought attending the Zyrus Academy at a more reasonable age would help him. Cynthia was surprised because that meant it was still more than 3 years away. She asked what Arthur would be doing until then. Arthur looks at his family. Arthur said that he had not told his family yet, but he had decided to become an adventurer. Cynthia said, "Looks like it," referring to their arrival. One of the new arrivals said, "Looks like they've already started." Alice looks angry and says to a man, "You just came back after we thought you were dead and now you're saying you want to go and let yourself get killed out there. No way, step over my dead body first." The Reynolds spoke to the woman while holding her hand. "Honey, I'm not saying that I agree with Arthur's desire to be an adventurer, but at least listen to him first." Alice pointed at the man and said in a high tone, "You don't understand, do you? How can you say that after all we went through to get here?" The Reynolds hugged the woman, who was now visibly crying. He said, "Honey," Arthur said, "I wasn't planning on leaving so soon. Mom, I plan to spend a few months in this house with everyone." The Arthur continued, "I know I'm new here, but after living in Elf Country for a few years, I feel like I've missed so much time in Sapin. I want to have the same experience when you two become adventurers." The Reynolds took the boy's hand and said, "I know where your wish is coming from, Art. So do I even. I'm looking forward to experiencing being an adventurer when I emerge as a teenager. But your mom has every right to be worried. No matter how prepared and strong you are, life as an adventurer is dangerous and unpredictable." Arthur looked thoughtful and said, "What if I had some guards or watchers with me?" Alice looks surprised as Reynolds says, "Hey, that's not a bad idea. But who would be good for it?" Suddenly, Alice shouts, "No, I can't believe you just decided that. I won't let you send my son away for another 3 years." Reynolds and the woman are sitting on the sofa. Arthur said, "I won't be gone for 3 years. I plan to come back every few months, or even in between missions." Alice asked, "Really?" The Arthur nodded. Ellie looks sad and asks, "Are you leaving already?" Arthur says frantically, No, I'll still be here, Ellie. You'll see your brother a lot." Alice asks Arthur, "I haven't given my consent yet, but at least answer this question of mine. Why do you now want to be adventurous? Wouldn't it make more sense to go to school before setting off as an adventure?" "Stay firm, Alice. Get over their cuteness." The Arthur replied, "Well, if I go to school now, I'll be a little younger than the other students. I want to fit in and make friends, but that might be harder with such a big age difference." Alice said, "Why you don't have to go to school now, but instead, what if you help your father?" Or, Reynolds next to her interrupted, "It's okay. Our son will be fine." Arthur said, "Thanks, Dad. I don't want to just train either. I want to fight and test the skills I've learned since coming to this world out there." "No one will steal your food," someone replied. "I'm just happy and enjoying my meal without rushing to work." "Wait, aren't you going to the auction house later to mentor new members?" The other replied, "That's just an excuse to throw a welcome party." So that's where the cost of the overreading came from. Arthur asked, "What are your plans for today?" "Your mother and I have to run some errands around town to prepare for the upcoming event at Halstia's auction house. We will bring your sister and Lilia. You are welcome to come if you wish." Arthur replied, "I think I'll stay home today. Thank you very much. By the way, did you guys settle the matter about?" Alice said, "We agreed to let her be an adventurer under some conditions." Tabitha asked what those conditions were. The Reynolds explained, first, she must wait until her birthday in 3 months. Secondly, she must have a guard during the mission. And third, she must visit us at least once every 2 months. Besides, she is quite intelligent and can manage the rest herself. Vincent asked, "That's all good, but have you decided who will be Arthur's guard? Are there any capable guards to look after him?" Everyone laughed. The Ellie says to the man, "Papa, look, I'm Sylvie." The Reynolds said, "Honey, that's rude." A woman said, "Wait, that's her, I know." The Reynolds said enthusiastically, "The twin horns are coming here after the dungeon expedition. I got a letter from a guild member saying they'll be back in 2 months. We can pick one of them to go with Arthur." Alice said, "That's actually a pretty good idea." Alice asked the man, "Shame, can you not be surprised when I have a good idea?" Arthur exclaimed, "Twin horns?" Several members of the twin horns can be seen: Jasmine, Durden, Angela, Helen, and Adam. Someone said, "I'll see them all soon." Vincent writing at his desk in the office where he works. Someone knocks on the door of Vincent's office. Arthur is standing at the door. Vincent asks Arthur if he misses his father, who is at the auction house. Arthur replied that he had come to discuss a certain matter and asked permission to enter. The Vincent invites Arthur in. 2 women are chatting in a market. They are talking about a personal room decoration that one of them made. Alice is embarrassed that what she made turned out to be a cheap item. A little girl named Ellie looks sullen. She felt upset because her brother didn't come. Ellie felt no longer important to her brother. Lilia's mother asked why Ellie made Ellie panic. Lilia replied that she was only teasing Ellie because Ellie only thought of Arthur. Lilia's mother suspects that Lilia might have a crush on Arthur. Lilia denies it and says that Arthur is just a freak. Lilia expresses her desire to become a witch like Arthur. Arthur's mother calms her down and says that Arthur is a different boy. Lilia asks how Arthur became so strong. Arthur's mother says that she and her husband didn't train Arthur specially. "We just gave him a small sword and it was also given by Arthur's father." Lilia's mother says that Arthur is hiding something from them. Lilia asks why they didn't ask Arthur directly. Alice says that she will always support Arthur until Arthur feels comfortable to tell her everything. A man in a dark robe watches the mother and son from a distance. The cloaked man walks down a narrow alley. He reports to someone through a magical transmission, saying that he cannot track down the royal family because they are guarded by wizards from Xyrus Academy. However, he knows that Arthur will be attending the 10th anniversary of Halstia Auction House, and he will inform Lord Sebastian about it. Arthur is having tea in the room of the man he met earlier. Vincent is nervous because of Arthur's strong aura of presence. Arthur thanks the man for the tea. He says that he came to ask the man to get some items for him. Arthur asks for a protective hooded cloak, a voice-changing mask, and a sword that fits his size. Vincent says he will try to get them, but only an artificer can make a voice-changing mask properly. Arthur is grateful. Vincent said that Arthur's father has helped him a lot since he started working for him. And Arthur said, "I can help Lilia to help her be able to awaken Lilia's mana." Vincent asks what. Arthur said that he could help Vincent's daughter, Lilia, to awaken as a witch and attend Xyrus Academy. Arthur with reddish-brown hair woke up, his eyes shining for a moment with golden light. He muttered, "Even after all this time, I can only use it for a few seconds." Arthur looked pensive, said, "It's still not enough to protect the people closest to me." Arthur, thinking, whether in my past life or in my present life ... Arthur's face looks serious. He says to himself, I need the strength to protect the people I care about. In the pouring rain, Arthur runs through the streets of a futuristic city. Books fall from the bag he is carrying. Arthur, who now has blonde hair, stands in a crowd of people. He looks scared. A person lies lifeless on a bed covered with a blanket. The blonde Arthur is crying hysterically, his hands outstretched as if to reach for something. A uniformed man hands a plastic bag to a dark-haired man. Inside the plastic bag, a gun is seen. Arthur with reddish-brown hair reappeared, wiping the sweat from his forehead. He determined, this time, I will be strong not for revenge, but to keep them safe. Arthur sits on the floor, accompanied by Sylvie the creature Koos. You. Arthur said, you're right, it looks like they've returned from their assignment. Sylvie cooed, Guo as she was petted by Arthur. Arthur replied calmly, I wouldn't joke about something like this. I made a deal with Mr. Helstia and he agreed to it. The older woman said, that's right. He said he'll show us when you get back, so let's go to the living room. Arthur was walking down the stairs in front of two adult women and a young girl. Alice asked in an unhappy tone, Arthur, what do you mean by making Lilia a witch? Even if it's a joke, it's a bit rude. Tabitha added, if this is a joke, Arthur, I think it's too much. In the living room, Arthur, Lilia, and Ellie sit kneeling on the floor. Arthur says, good, now I want you to breathe according to my directions. Arthur said to himself, the best time to feel mana is when you breathe slowly and at the right tempo. Hopefully, they can follow my explanation easily. Vincent, Tabitha, Alice watched them. Arthur said, the first step is to breathe in a special way. The older girl asked, in a special way? Arthur turns to the smaller girl. Ellie can breathe easily. It's not just about breathing. If you can do it, you can be as strong as your sister. Ellie is shocked. K strong. Arthur smiled and stroked her head. Strong like big brother. Arthur guided the two girls to breathe. He hopes to himself, I hope she can understand my instructions. However, breathe like this. Arthur explained, take a deep breath from your nose to the extent that you can. When you can't inhale anymore, open your mouth and inhale once more. Arthur continues, then, let the air out in small puffs about 15 times. Arthur, he said, good. He then continued, now repeat with your eyes closed until you see a beautiful light floating in the darkness. Ellie exclaims, beautiful light, I see it. Ah, they're gone. Arthur smiled, that's because you stopped your special breathing. Lilia, I still can't see them. Is there something wrong with me? Arthur calmed her down. No, it's fine. Your parents weren't witches, so I expected it. Their mother asked, honey, can you at least tell us what you're doing? Tabitha explained, I know you mean well and I won't question your abilities as a witch, but teaching a child to rise as a witch is something unprecedented. It should happen naturally. She continued, well, I just want to help them to do what I did when I was 3 years old. And I think the only reason I can do this is because of my compatibility with all the elements. I've been simulating it in my head, and we'll know once we try it. Arthur said, just watch. Okay, let's see if it works like my theory. The 3 children are now surrounded by particles of light. Arthur said, Ellie, Lilia, your bodies might feel a little hot, but try to keep breathing like I taught you. Tabitha, I saw it. Ellie adds, it's so pretty. Arthur continued his instructions. Now, concentrate. Try to unify the white light. Ellie asks, unite? Arthur explained, the little lights are your friends and they will be happy together. Can you do it for me, Ellie? Ellie replied, okay. Arthur is exhausted. I think this is as far as I can go today. All 3 children lie tired on the floor. Tabitha asks, so, how was it? Can our Lilia become a witch? Arthur replied, that will take a few years, but if I do this with them for a few months until they are independent. Lilia's mother hugged Arthur. Sorry for doubting you. Thank you, thank you. Lilia's father added, thanks to you. My son will have many opportunities that we could not give him because we are not wizards. Thank you. Arthur said, after, my life was more fun. I spent every morning training my sister and Lilia to get closer to their awakening. Arthur is seen training the 2 girls using magic. He continues, even with my impatience to become stronger, I still spent my time with everyone because I realized I wouldn't have this kind of opportunity in the future. 2 months have passed since the last incident. In a large room, two people were looking nervous. Reynolds said to Alice, "You must be feeling good, being able to meet Twin Horn today. It's been a while since we've seen them, hasn't it?" Alice replied, "I don't think I'm the only one who feels that way." A brown-haired boy with brown eyes, named Arthur, stood on the grand staircase. He turned his head towards the people walking towards him. A small black creature, Sylvie, jumped onto his back. Someone knocked on the door of her room, "They're here," and was greeted with a grateful, "Oh, thank God." The door opened and Arthur was hugged tightly by a blonde woman. The woman hugged Arthur tightly as she said, "You've had a hard time for a boy your age." Arthur choked a little from the too tight hug and he said, "Angela, I can't breathe." Angela, realizing that the hug was too tight, immediately loosened the hug and said, "Gosh, where are my manners?" Arthur looks at a dark-haired man and says, "Durden, you seem to be getting bigger." He adds, "I'm a little emotional." Durden was visibly moved with tears rolling down his cheeks. Durden stroked Arthur's head lovingly. Flashes of difficult past events came to mind. He says to Arthur, "Aren't you too?" A red-haired man comes in and asks, "What's with all these tears? Weren't we planning to put on a happy face in front of this child?" A black-haired woman approached him and drew her gun. "You can ignore this fool." She hugged the red-haired man tightly as she said, "We are all happy to see you again. You've grown up and gotten more handsome." The red-haired man, named Vari, said, "So I'm a bad man for not crying?" He added, "It's not my fault. I'm old enough to control myself." A dark-haired woman, named Jasmine, hugs Arthur and repeatedly apologizes to him. Arthur's parents, Alice and Reynolds, watch from a distance. Reynolds said, "Looks like we've lost our chance to show up." In a room, Vincent is getting ready with the help of a servant. Asked, "Are you sure you don't need a witch to guard the inside?" Reynolds replied, "We have Angela and the Wind Witch who can create a barrier around the auction house, and we also have Durden guarding the entrance. If we add another guard, people might think we're preparing for war." The bespectacled man said, "I'm really grateful that your old party is willing to help our guards." Reynolds continued, "Speaking of which, with them, I can spread the guards around the auction house. We can deal with threats outside so that guests will be safe and the auction house won't be attacked." The bespectacled man commented, "I'm sure you must be joking, but based on my recent experience with witches, I'll just take your words as a promise." He added, "And hope that everything will be fine. And about your son, becoming an adventurer seems to be his second request after he wanted a sword." Reynolds was surprised and asked, "Oh," the bespectacled man continued, "Yeah, and you are a hand-to-hand fighter. I didn't expect that you could teach your son to fight with a sword." Reynolds replied, All I did was give him a wooden sword for his initial training. He was 4 at the time, and he learned everything on his own." The man was surprised. 4 years old. Vincent said, "Apparently there's more to my surprise. To be honest, he told me that he was self-taught, but when we were sparring, he sometimes exerted some kind of ... pressure." The bespectacled man asked, "Pressure?" Reynolds explains, "It's like a confidence that he's accumulated from decades of fighting." The man retorted, "Ray is not even a decade old. Don't you think it's too much to praise him?" Reynolds replied, "Maybe you're right. But when we spar, sometimes he suddenly stumbles or messes up his movements. It's as if he's not used to his body." The bespectacled man said, "If that's the case, I know why ... double quotes." Reynolds asked, "You do?" The man replied, "Early puberty." Then he said, "Ha ha ha, let's just go downstairs. It's probably all waiting for us." An elegantly dressed woman reprimanded, "You two are taking too long. How can 2 grown men take that long to get ready?" Vincent, "Whoa, you all look great." Vincent said, "I feel bad that I made you wear black and white. We are all part of the event organizers, so I don't want you to look the same as the guests." However, I don't think Ree's family needs to match their clothes with ours, Alice replied. No problem. I don't even feel comfortable in brightly colored clothes, adding, Arthur murmured, dressing like this makes me realize, no matter what I wear now, I'm just a cute kid. I can only hope that I can grow up soon. The man with glasses clapped his hands and said, all right, ladies and gentlemen. The man said, then let's get going, the train is waiting for us. He said to Arthur, I hear that my daughter's training is going well. Arthur replied, if she keeps training like this, she should be able to bounce back when she enters Zyra's academy at a normal age. The man with glasses bowed slightly and said, thank you again. Arthur replied, of course. I'm just doing what we agreed to do. I can't wait to see what's in the auction house. Vincent, saying let's go, exits the house. The Lewin family and the Helstia family arrived in town and were welcomed with great fanfare. They boarded a specially decorated horse-drawn carriage to go to a place. Inside the carriage, the Lewins were talking. A pink-haired man said, son, I can't believe you had to go through all that after you fell off the cliff. A black-haired woman next to him added, everything. At least you got a contract. That's something that even adventurers and nobles can rarely have. The woman with long black hair then looked at a brown-haired boy and said, yes, that's why she's special to me. The horse-drawn carriage continues to move until it stops at its destination. The brown-haired boy, Arthur, marveled at the magnificent building before him. So this, Helstia auction house. The building looked magnificent from the outside and inside. It was the 10th anniversary of the Helstia auction house, an event that nobles and adventurers looked forward to. Not only was it a celebration, it was also an opportunity to view and purchase rare artifacts that had been locked up and guarded for this special occasion. Arthur walked in the hallway and marveled, wow! So many Cormana beasts, and even, what is it? Arthur continued his exploration. The exterior of this building is amazing, but the inside is the same. Feeling enthusiastic, Vincent enthusiastically said, all right, everyone. Today is a big day. Reynolds gave instructions to his team. Let's get together and make sure there are no mistakes. Team B, make sure the corridors are checked every half hour before you circle back to where you came from. Yes, sir, the team members replied. A dark-haired woman approached Arthur and said, it's good to see them like this, especially my father. It's a big difference from his usual self. Arthur responded, well, your father is the leader after all. The woman continued, I've improved a lot since I took his place, but I still can't match him. I'm going to join your father now, by the way. See you soon. A woman called out to Arthur, Arthur, come here. Yes, ma'am, Arthur replied. The woman said, let's go inside. Vincent and your father will join us in a moment. They entered the main room, which was filled with many people. Arthur was amazed. Arthur noticed a man on the stage. He must be the auctioneer who will be hosting this event. He admired the splendor of the place. Even after becoming king and living among the Eleanor royal family, this still impresses me. A woman asks Arthur, so, Arthur, what do you think of our Helstia auction house? Arthur replied, I don't think the word house fits this place. The lady laughed. Well, I'm glad to hear that. A young girl, Ellie, invited Arthur. Just wait until you see the special room upstairs. Be careful, Ellie, said a woman. They are greeted by an attendant. Welcome, ma'am. Arthur enthused, seeing how grand this place is. I can't wait to see what they're going to auction off today. A woman said to the children, we will welcome important guests later. But for now, we should have some fun first. Oi, oi, said the children. They had a great time before the show started. Ellie shouted, whoa, there are so many people. Ellie counts the number of guests. A woman comments, how cute. She then invited Ellie to play. Hey Ellie, instead of counting, let's play Pock Pock instead. Pock Pock, yes. Ellie said happily. They played together, two women chatting. Arthur thought, looks like everyone is having a good time. A servant approached the woman in the black dress. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to let you know that the VIP guest has arrived and will be here soon. I see, the woman replied. The Glader royal family arrived. The master of ceremonies introduced them. I present ... His Royal Highness Blaine Glader, Her Royal Highness Priscilla Glader, Prince Curtis Glader, Princess Kathiam Glader. Arthur recalled, this feeling is the same as in Elenoir. I'm in the presence of royalty again. The king said, I didn't know we would be sharing this room with guests. Vincent, forgive me for being presumptuous, Your Majesty. Said Vincent, when you were last here, you said that you wanted to see my family again. So I thought today it would be suitable to bring you together again. He introduced his family. Do you remember my wife Tabitha and daughter Lelia? Greetings, Your Majesty, replied Tabitha. This is Alice Lewin, the wife of a close friend of mine. And their children Arthur and Eleanor Lewin. Greetings, Your Majesty, replied Alice. King Blaine said, well, Vincent's friend is my friend too. All right, please stand up. After all, we are here to celebrate Halstia's wonderful 10th birthday and to enjoy the festivities. Yes, there is no need to be formal. And let's enjoy this together. Arthur was surprised to see Sylphie, his manhwa beast. Yo, oh my, what a cute manhwa beast. It looks like a reptile, but more intelligent. Arthur explained, she just hatched a few months ago, Your Majesty. Her name is Sylvie. Say hello to them, Sylvie. Q. Sylvie replied. The king asked, is she the manhwa beast that formed the pact with you? Young man, yes, Your Majesty, Arthur replied. How lucky you are, baby beasts are not easy to tame. Yet he seems obedient, the king commented. Arthur explained, well, we are able to communicate with the mind. So rather than being called obedient, our bond is more of a mutual agreement. Someone was surprised. What? So you're saying you're in an equality contract with this manhwa beast? His advisor exclaimed. Arthur panicked slightly. Shit. Did I say something unnatural? He hurriedly explained, I mean, he's the one who proposed the contract. The king's advisor wanted a closer look. Let me take a close look at your contract sign. Stop, said the king. This is not the right time and place to study someone's pet. Need I remind you that you are currently on duty, Sebastian? The king asked. Forgive me, Your Majesty, replied Sebastian. The master of ceremonies said, the program is about to begin. Please take a seat, Your Majesty. Arthur looked at Sebastian. Sebastian adjusts his hood.